Philip Good here, guys. I am a relationship coach and an abuse recovery specialist. So the title of this video is How I Help Men Stop Domestic Violence. Everything in this life is designed to test us, to challenge us. Men involved in domestic violence or domestic abuse have fallen out of love with themselves. The test here, our challenge here in this life is my challenge, and if you're an abuser, it's your challenge as well. To fall back in love with yourself and everybody else, because it always starts with you. Can you forgive yourself and learn to love yourself? So my story has started out at 12 months of age, real and raw. And so I'll describe it to you briefly here now and give you a bit of a synopsis of what my life was like, my mother's life, and so on before I get on to the rest of the video. When I was 12 months of age, my father, it went like this: bang, slam. I got flung it out of my high chair. I knocked a plate of food off my high chair tray and sent it to the floor. Didn't break anything. And my father went whack, bang. And I flew out of the high chair and ended up going flying across the kitchen and dining room floor to my 18-year-old auntie's feet. That was my introduction to violence at 12 months of age. At 8 years of age, I witnessed, as did my three brothers, witnessed my mother knocked out with one punch. There was an argument over finances, which was the norm, lack of my mother not getting enough housekeeping money to feed and clothe us boys, and so on. And the other, of course, argument that was common was my mother's parents were, according to my father, Bible-bashing bastards. And my father's family were not religious, my mother's were. So those were two seats of arguments. So that was that situation. My mother knocked out one punch. My grandfather was living with us, came out and said to my father, "What have you done now, boy?" As he knelt down beside my mother, who hadn't moved. My brothers and I thought she was dead, but she wasn't. She was knocked out, but she wasn't. She was motionless, didn't move. So my grandfather knelt down by my mother, and my father was standing in the background. And I can always remember my grandfather looking up at my father and said, "Never let drink rule your life." My father had been drinking, which made his abuse and aggression way, way worse. So that was that. My mother recovered. But of course, the memory with myself and my brothers has stayed with us forever. It was a nightmare. So fast forward, there's many other instances, but the major one that happened with me, with my direct involvement, was when I was 17 and I had a fight with my father. I knocked all the wind out of his sails and was sitting on top of him about to finish him off. My fist was up here, and all I could think of was all the things he'd done, all the violence he'd done to my mother, all the hits and beatings he'd done to myself, my brothers, and to my mother. And I thought, now is my opportunity. I'm going to send him back to where he deserves to go, out of this life. And I had no fear. I had the adrenaline pumping. I was powerful. I was strong. I almost had the strength of 3 or 4 men, right? And then in that emotionally charged moment with my mother in the background and my 2 kid sisters, they're only 6 and 3 at the time, and my mother was yelling out, "Get off him, leave him alone." And I just couldn't understand that. But in that moment, a voice came into my head. It wasn't a voice that I recognized. And to this day, I believe it was either God or Jesus. Came into my mind and said, "If you do what you're about to do, that is kill my father with my bare fists, you'll be as bad as he is." So in that emotionally charged moment, it stopped me dead in my tracks. And I looked down into my father's eyes, and all I could see was fear. The first time in my life, I'd seen fear in my father's eyes. And amazingly, in all the beatings that I took, in the 18 years I was at, from 17, my father never touched me after I almost killed him. But for those first 17 years, even though I was beaten and knocked down so many times, I never had any fear whatsoever of my father. And I was knocked down 3, 4, 5 times. I'd always get back up again and look my father directly in the eyes. So no way did I let him ever win or think that I was afraid of him. For me to stay down, he'd have to knock me clean out. And he didn't do that. See, the adrenaline that pumps through your body in such a situation is, I believe, comes straight from God. It's a way of taking away your pain. So I didn't feel any pain with all the hits that I took. But the danger with all that is that for the abuser and the abused, is that if adrenaline takes away your pain, it also takes away all your feelings. And that can become dangerous, because without feelings, if you're dead in your feelings, growing up with violence yourself, it can cause you to be a very dangerous person, because you're not human anymore. You become more like an animal, a thing, devoid of feelings and emotions. And that's what you've got to be aware of. So a test in this life is, particularly for the abuser, is if we committed abuse, it's because we've fallen out of love with ourselves. You may have been beaten as a child like I was. You've fallen out of love with yourself. So falling out of love with yourself, how can you love everyone else or anyone else? You can't. So you've got to forgive yourself, learn to love yourself before you can love anyone else. So anyway, that's part of my story, but let's get back to the video itself and the content. See, men or boys are not born violent. My mother said to me, I took 4 days to be born. I was the eldest of 6 kids. I knew in my heart that my mother had 1 miscarriage. I knew that was me. And I had that confirmed when I had my Akashic records opened a couple of years ago. But my mother had a miscarriage, and that was me. And I know that I felt that I couldn't stand the life that I was going to lead. My purpose and mission in coming into this life, in this incarnation, was to stop the cycle of violence that had plagued my family for generations, and it literally had. But to do that, I had to withstand the abuse and the beatings and the hidings myself in order to achieve that, to stop the violence that had plagued my family for generations. So that's what my mother said to me when I was a little baby. She said I had such sparkly eyes. My eyes sparkled like the stars. But as time wore on, the beatings that I got, those sparkles in my eyes started to fade as the abuse set in. And that's all I knew was tension, stress, anger, and wondering what was going to happen next. So boys are not born violent. Men are not born violent. They're made that way. And often they're made that way by their parents, by a father. And often it's a generational thing. It goes back through the generations. Like my father, for instance, was beaten by his mother. He used to run to my grandfather for protection against his own mother. And my grandmother, who was violent towards my father, probably, although I didn't know, probably was beaten by her father or mother herself. So the cycle continued on way back and way forward. And that's what happens. It becomes generational. Nobody said, stop, this is not good enough. So therefore, love gets buried beneath hate, anger, stress, tension, And quite often boys, as they become teenagers, a lot of them with no love or care, they leave home. And that's why a lot of boys join gangs, because a gang is another word for a family. It's a brotherhood, and it's where there's camaraderie. The boys and the young guys in the gang have got your back. They'll die for you. They have a die for you attitude. It's a family. Because everybody wants to feel good, feel great, feel wanted, feel cared for. And in the absence of it in your home, boys or teenagers leave because the hunger for love and to feel good is ingrained in your core. So obviously it's not the boys that leave home. It's not their fault. It's a lack of love and care. It's a love and care they did not receive it in their home. That's why they leave. But with saying that so I think that violence and that is like you could say that it's no one's problem but everyone's problem. No one's fault down through the generations, but everyone's fault. And nobody has tried to stop and say enough is enough. We have two choices. We can condone and continue the violence, or we can say that wasn't good enough. I'm going to stop it and do something different. And when you put a peg in the sand and say enough's enough, that's when the healing starts. And it heals past down through like I just said, down through the generations, but it also heals forward to future generations. You've stopped it in the present dead in its tracks, but it has an effect of healing way back and way forward. So if you do this, you could well be regarded by future generations as a hero. Somebody that's a courageous spiritual warrior who chose love over hate and peace over violence. And isn't that what's required in the world right now? Love over hate and peace over violence. So without this decision to stop the abuse, a boy becomes a man, enters a relationship. And because he's afraid of being abandoned or left alone, like he was when his parents split, he renders his wife or partner weak. He belittles her, he beats her, he's emotionally absent, he goes to the pub and drinks with his mates, but doesn't spend any time with his wife. There's no love and affection. He doesn't help with the children, help around the chores around the house, and so on. And so the wife, if there's any children, they're afraid of being beaten again. They're afraid of the husband and the father. So you instill fear. And it's designed to weaken his partner physically, mentally, and emotionally. So she has not got the strength to leave. And guess what, guys? If there's children involved, it's way worse for the children. The children literally have a life sentence. You think it is bad for women, sure, but it's even worse for their children. How do I know that? Because I was one of those. I was a child of abuse. So to change, the abuser needs to admit that he or she has a problem and needs to seek out specialist help. Alcohol and drugs always make things worse and plunges the abuser into a negative and depressive mindset. Negative and depressive moods, becomes very moody, like my father was. So real change only happens when you take ownership, accountability, and responsibility for your actions. And don't blame anyone else. Don't make excuses. Don't make Don't be in denial of what you're actually doing. Own it. And you know it. You know you need to own it. You know you're at fault. And it takes guts and courage to stop. And you have two choices, like I said before. I had two choices. My father had two choices. He chose to continue and condone and continue. I chose to stop it. So I didn't like it as a kid myself. I didn't like to see my mother get beaten. So I was not going to do that to my wife or my children. That was my decision. So if you are a spiritual warrior who stood up and stopped domestic abuse, you've done that once and for all time. It's a hugely courageous act. So whether you, like I said earlier on in the video, everything is a test in this life. A test of whether you can change. If you're an abuser, to become a non-abuser. To take love and hate out of your life and instill it with love, joy, happiness. For you, your wife, your partner, your children, everyone. Courage, it takes courage. But whether you know it or not, you were born in this time to heal your family line, to heal yourself and your family line. And by doing so, you help yourself and your family fall back into love with yourselves and everyone else you come in contact with. And surely, guys, you don't want your wife, your children to be afraid of you, to fear you like your mother and father did to you, mother or father did to you, if that was the case. So learning self-control, throwing away the alcohol and drugs like I did, it's a way back to love and happiness. And it starts with loving yourself. You can't love anyone else until you love yourself. And realize you're not your mother and father. You have the power and control as an adult. See, as a kid, you didn't have any control at all. Your mother and father had the control, but they were out of control if they were the causes of your abuse. But as an adult yourself, you have a decision. You have a choice. You can continue the abuse or you can stop it. And the pathway to stopping it is the pathway to love and happiness. That's what I chose, and I hope you do too. But imagine for one moment having a wife and children who love you, not fear you. So the way to keep your wife and children with you is to love them, not hurt them. To put them up on a pedestal and worship them. So simply by changing your thoughts and feelings, behaviors and actions, do you achieve the results you desire? That love and happiness, which leads to a dream relationship, something that you didn't think was possible. That I can tell you, I've done it. It is not possible. It is real. You can do it and I can help you to do it. I know how to do it because I've done it. And forgiving yourself and everyone that has ever done anything to you. The abuser, maybe your father or your mother or someone else, whoever it is. Forgiving yourself and everyone else who's ever done anything to you releases the hate and anger and allows love to grow in your heart. And how do I know this is possible? Because I've done it myself. And I will show you how to do it and how to change if that is your wish. Thank you for listening to this video, guys. I hope you got something out of it. Yes, we all have two choices when we get into a relationship or as a as a man, as a boy, or even as a woman, of course, as well. But I'm talking to men or boys out there. Abuse is not nice. You didn't like it as a kid yourself. And unfortunately, often abusers have been abused themselves. I know that. I was one of those. But when I had that fight with my father at 17, I learned self-control in an emotionally charged moment. And that changed everything for me. And when I saw my grandfather kneeling beside my mother who was knocked out, look up at my father and say, never let drink rule your life. He could be saying the same thing for drugs as well. Never let drink, alcohol, or drugs rule your life, because they'll destroy your life. They'll destroy your relationship, and they destroy you until you put a peg in the sand and say stop. If you know that alcohol and drugs makes your behavior worse or your abuse worse, stop it. It's easy to stop. And I've never been drunk once in my life. And I'll go to my grave like that. Because how does drink or drugs benefit me? My health, my emotions, and my relationships with my wife and children doesn't benefit me at all. If you want to get high on life, or feel high and feel good yourself, you only have to look at your children and grandchildren. Just see they're high on life. They don't need any stimulant to make them feel good, to feel great, to feel happy and joyous. They just are that. Getting back to be like that. I mean, I can help you do that. I don't take any stimulant, alcohol or drugs, to help me be loving and happy with myself, my wife, and my children, and my grandchildren. If that's something you guys would like to achieve, I can help you do that. I know this has been pretty on task and really pointed, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel, guys. If you're in a dark space, I can help you get to the light at the end of the tunnel, because I've got to the light, and the light means you get to the light and also the love at the end of it. And that's what I wish for you guys. If you need any help, guys, I'd love to help you. I'll have all my details at the bottom when I've recorded this and uploaded this video to YouTube. Please get in touch. I'd love to help you, and hop on a Zoom call and we'll have a chat about it and see if I can help you. Live the dream, create a dream relationship. If not already that, get back to that. Save your relationship, save your marriage, and make you feel like a hero. Thanks, guys. Blessings, love, and light to you all. Bye for now.